Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it is official. The Highbury squad is launching Lockdown Series Volume 2, Episode 1, our new segment, The Player Profile, where we focus on just one Gooner. And today, we start with one of our most exciting prospects, Emile Smith Rowe. Welcome to the show today. Hello, everyone who is in chat, and good evening to everyone who might be listening to us on replay. We're thankful for you joining the Highbury squad once again. We're bringing you the Lockdown Series Volume 2 because the world is continuing to go through difficult times. And as we've promised you, and as we've promised everyone, Super Kevin Campbell joining me tonight, the Highbury squad will always be here with good content.
Always here to help our people, our family, all the fans, because I know there's fans who don't even support Arsenal who come on. I think it's very important we keep this relationship, everyone.
Yep. And we keep each other's spirits up, and there's always something to talk about, even if there's not a game. And as you know, the Highbury squad, we have some really good arcs and threads in terms of storytelling and, you know, what we like to put out there for content. Joining me again this evening is Super Kevin Campbell. Thank you so much, Super Kev. We're with you for a half hour this evening, and we start our player profile series as lockdown continues. And today I wanted to start with Emile Smith Rowe. Super Kev, you and I both have a lot of love for this kid. A lot of Arsenal fans, I would say most Arsenal fans have a lot of love for him. Most of us also believe that he is the future. I do want to read something to you to kick off with, because there was, after his really good performances, Owen Hargreaves and Paul Ince, coincidentally two ex-Manchester United midfielders, kind of came out and said that maybe he isn't the future. And so I wanted to read a quote and start here before we get into a little bit more of his DNA. And here we go. So this is the quote from Hargreaves. I think Smith Rowe's good. He's smart to the fact that he plays quick. He doesn't take too many touches because he's not really a skillful, fair player. He gets it to other players quickly. I'm not sure whether Smith Rowe's quite there yet, says Ince. He went out on loan to Huddersfield, but it's a learning curve for him now. As we know, Super Kev, fans at Huddersfield loved Smith Rowe. They thought that he did brilliantly for them while he was there. And, you know, I think that they would have him back in a heartbeat. One of a really good positive loans, I thought, of all of the younger players. When you look at Eddie had a good spell too. Balogun hasn't gone out as much. We've talked about, you know, Maitland-Niles from previous, but wondered what your thoughts were initially from Owen Hargreaves and Roy Keane before we get to a little bit more. Paul? Oh, sorry, Paul Ince. Paul Ince,
right.
Yeah.
Listen, some constructive criticism, but some of the stuff was, you know, he plays quick. Give it to me all day. There were some good pluses, and obviously he's young. Yeah, I get that. And he's learning the game. But one thing you can't deny, he's coming to Arsenal's team and made a difference. Mm-hmm. So, you know, whether they say he's not quite there yet or whatever, he's making a difference in Arsenal's team at, 19, 20 years old. So, you know, some of the stuff I don't agree with. But you know what? He's our boy. He's our guy. Mm-hmm. So I don't really care what they say, to be honest with you, because if he's making a difference in our team, that'll do me.
And also, Casey, if opposing ex-players are talking about him, you know that he has value and you know that he brings something to the table. And I would argue that Emile Smith Rowe and Saka bring as much to the table as their Mason Greenwood and Marcus Rashford. You look across the board, you've got Phil Foden at Manchester City, you have Jack Grealish at Aston Villa, you have Mason Mount at Chelsea, but there's no doubt that he brings some value. So I wanted to talk to you, Casey, and get in the mind of the player, especially as a striker, when you look at Emile Smith Rowe. From passing, key passes, dribbling, there's no doubt that he has a talent. One of the weaknesses that comes up on a lot of so-called data analytic websites, where his weaknesses might be is his finishing, his aerial duels, and his defensive contribution. Can you talk to me a little bit about, first, let's go to his strengths: passing, key passes, dribbling, positioning, I think, too.
Football brain.
Let's go there. Yeah. Talk me through it a little bit.
Football brain straight away. The moment Owen Hargreaves turns around and says he plays quick, that'll do me. Because how many times have we seen Arsenal be ponderous, play side to side with no energy? Players like Emile Smith Rowe seem to me, where you can go slow until you get into that final third, and he's the person who could inject tempo into the attack. Just by one move. We saw it at West Bromwich Albion. Just that little ball around the corner and his run injected pace into it. Into Saka, into Lacazette, round the corner for Smith Rowe, a dolly for Saka. That is quality football. And there ain't many players who can do that. We know Jack Grealish can do it. We know Phil Foden could do it. But there ain't many players, I'm telling you, in that midfield who can inject that tempo at the top end of the pitch.
It's a brilliant point, KC, because we saw the movement and how faster we were playing in those games against Brighton, in the game against Chelsea, and he injected that. Can you also, as a forward, let me know about spaces? Because players like Emile Smith Rowe, because of their dribbling, they may take an additional player with them as they're dribbling, which means it opens spaces for the forward, or even maybe crossing it to the other side on the flanks. Can you, as a forward, when you're playing with a number 10 like that, can you just talk me through the spaces that they potentially create and what he does for this team in the short time that we've seen?
Yeah. A quality player with football brain, even though he's young, Emile Smith Rowe, what he does is he creates doubt in the defender's head. It's very important to create doubt, because you see, normally when we're going through the tough time, Sophie, the defense seems solid. No one's asking them a question. They could just sit in there and they know, I've got Lacazette, or I've got Aubameyang, or I've got this one, and they're not bothered. But the moment you get a smart player who could go into an area that if he gets the ball, they're in trouble, means they adjust. They have to adjust to him. And the fact that they have to move even 1 or 2 steps means there's more space for the striker. Now, if the striker's got a little bit more room, when the ball goes into him, he's got a bit more room to maneuver. So that then collapses the defense, and then they could play around a la what happened at West Bromwich Albion, where Smith Rowe played it into Saka, Saka into Lacazette. The defense kind of collapsed. Lacazette played it round the corner. Smith Rowe got round on the back, and Saka continued his run. Lovely. It looks easy, Sophie, doesn't it? It looks so easy.
But it's so fluid. It's so fluid. That's why.
And it happens so fast that the defense doesn't have time to react. But when there's not a Smith Rowe there to inject that tempo, we've seen it. The defense just sit there, come on, and then when they play it into Lacazette, bang, Lacazette gets challenged, the ball breaks down, and we look like, what's wrong with us? We haven't got no energy and blah, 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 blah. So Smith Rowe's a very clever player.
So you're listening to the Highbury Squad here, Lockdown Series Volume 2 with Super Kevin Campbell, our new series, The Player Profile. We're kicking off with Emile Smith Rowe today. Super Kev, one of the things I think that is a bit of a not a pandemic in football, but it's a very important part of football, is the short passing. In the past, we've been used to seeing players in the Premier League like a Xavi Alonso, who had that sweeping pass that was able to break defenses. We've even seen our Kieran Tierney do it against Liverpool a couple of times and supply that kind of longer pass to Tierney. But the short passing is very much a part of the modern game. And what he's done, and you're talking about speed and injecting energy, and Real Captain here is talking about that first touch for Saka's goal, which was definitely a wow. Can you talk to us about the value of someone like him adding that short passing, which helps with the quick movement of the team and what we've lacked in the early part of this season?
Yeah, I think it's not just the short pass. It's what precedes that short pass. Because when the ball came into Smith Rowe, he could have taken a touch, but the picture was already in his head. That's why he's got a football brain. When the ball comes into him, he knows exactly where Saka is, so he plays it round the corner, and then he goes. He knows what Saka's gonna do. Ball gets played to Saka, first time into Lacazette. Lacazette plays it round the corner. Remember, he started the move by that tempo pass, that shorter pass, but he's already in. The ball gets played in, slices the defense open. And to be fair, I said it before, he could have had a shot, Sophie. But again, that football brain knows if I give it to Saka, it's a guaranteed goal. I slide it across to him. Do you know what? I respect players like that so much. So much. He's doing it for the team. Ultimate team player. And that short pass with the movement, brilliant.
The other thing I like about him, Casey, is that he's strong, but obviously he can become stronger. We've seen even Marcus Rashford, he started off very slight, right? We've seen these younger players come through. They start off slight, they build up. Look at Theo. He was so slight. And, you know, everyone goes into the gym. And in the new modern world, I think influenced a lot by Tiger Woods playing golf, he changed the game where he made muscle a huge part of that. And now Bryson DeChambeau's taken that on to a completely different level too with regards to strength and stuff. When you see him, he's not too skinny, but as a former player, what would your advice to him be when you look at him from an exterior perspective versus the characteristics of him as a footballer with the ball?
I think he's fine, Sophie. These things take time. I wouldn't say, go and be a gym warrior straight away, because he's young. He's still growing. He's still, he's going to fill out. But the fact of the matter is, when you've got the talent and the football brain that he has, listen, the stronger he gets, he's going to be the bigger problem for defenses. Because, we saw Jack Grealish. You look at Jack Grealish when he first got into the team, he was slight. Look at him now. He's a man. He's strong. He's a man now. And that's what I see for Smith Rowe. I think that's going to come slowly but surely. Another preseason in him, more playing at the top level. There's going to be times where people are going to start trying to rough him up, because they know if we stop him, we're going to stop a lot of the Arsenal attacks. So that he's going to get some rough treatment. He's have to be able to take it, and that all comes as part and parcel, because his game isn't built on power. His game's built on smarts and speed of thought. But when he does get that physicality as well, defenses, watch out.
Definitely. Absolutely. And we will be doing Martinelli and Saka. This is our first player profile. We're just focusing on Emile Smith Rowe tonight. Casey, are we putting too much pressure on him? There's been so much talk in the last few days about him being our De Bruyne. He seems like Saka not to be bothered by any of the stress or the pressure. He's just been waiting for the moment. And you've been in that similar situation too, where you waited patiently for your moment at Arsenal and you came through the ranks just like them. Can you talk us through that a little bit, where you're kind of watching the first team, you can make a difference in the first team, but you've got to wait your time for the first team. And then when you get into the first team, you're compared to a potential great. Can you as a player kind of take us into that moment?
Yeah, I mean, it's flattering, isn't it? As a player, it's flattering. But Emile Smith Rowe wants to be the first Emile Smith Rowe at Arsenal. I could tell you that much. The fact that everyone likes to compare O's with Kevin De Bruyne, because, it's a good comparison, because it's a football brain. You see his football brain, the way he moves. Kevin De Bruyne moves a little bit that way, but Kevin De Bruyne is world class. Emile Smith Rowe, he's played a handful of games in Arsenal's first team. So he could be half as good as Kevin De Bruyne, I think we'll all be very, very happy, Sophie. We will be. But I just think he's fearless. He's fearless. You don't really care about what people say. You just want to get in the team. You want to prove yourself. You want to play for Arsenal because, that's your club. You want to get up there and you want to do well, and you love it when the fans speak well of you. So, he just wants to keep proving himself week in, week out. Again, I will say this. Kevin De Bruyne has been one of the most consistent players in the world for the last 4 or 5 years.
Incredible.
if Emile Smith Rowe could get half consistent, I think we're onto a winner.
Yeah, we're quids in right there. Good evening, Brittany France. Good evening to everyone who's in chat and who will be joining us on replay as well around the world. You're listening to Lockdown Series Volume 2, Episode 1, the player profile, Emile Smith Rowe with Super Kevin Campbell right here. Get your questions in. We've got 15 minutes left. So if you've got any questions for Super Kev about Emile Smith Rowe, throw them in the chat.
I like Smith Rowe even more. You know why? So
tell me why, Super Kev.
Because he's a South London boy.
Yes, I was going to get to that.
He's another one. He's another South London boy.
Okay,
Arsenal and South London go a long, long way, as you know.
What is it about Arsenal and South London? And I wanted to get your take on this because we heard, we heard Ian Wright talk about him, and he said that obviously Ian knows his dad, and he was, dropping him off at training or something along those lines. Casey, did you?
He was doing the dad run. He was doing the dad run, wasn't he?
Right.
Yeah, taking him to training back and forth. And this is what happens. And you know what? It's a trek because you've got to go through all the traffic.
Yep.
You know what the traffic likes in London, Soph. You've got to go through all the traffic and get him to training, take him to training. You've got to wait there, watch him train, and, you got to take him home. So, back in the day, we didn't have a dad to take us to training. We had to make the trip on our own steam. Now, you're in the comfort of a car with your dad. It's brilliant. And I know I've done it with my boys. So look, fair play to his dad, and right, he acknowledged that. So what a great story. But you know what's even better? A kid who's come through the ranks like Emile Smith Rowe could come in and be himself, because I think he's definitely himself. He's got a unique way of playing, Sophie. I don't think there's anyone in the team who plays like him.
No.
Even that guy who's on the sideline, who made a comment about nice to see a number 10. But what I never saw him do was make tackles at the edge of his own box, nick the ball, and then end up in the opposition box. So, he's doing it in his own way. He's got a work ethic. He's only going to get better, Sophie. And I think, what an absolute gem of a kid. Doesn't say much. He gets on with it.
And I think that's the difference. And I don't want to compare younger players, but we've seen Greenwood and Foden get into trouble. And we don't know what Emile Smith Rowe might go through if he is called up to, an international level, and how he adapts and how he handles himself. But I think one of the things that people don't recognize about Arsenal Football Club sometimes is the media training a lot of these younger players go through, Super Kev. We've seen that throughout the years with the Ox, with Jack. We saw it with Theo, the young British core, especially, that were utilised in some certain spots to be spokespersons. But even with our foreign players coming in, I will say that Arsenal do a really great job of making the players understand media obligations and how important it is in terms of how you present yourself, and when you talk to the media, how you talk to the media as well. And they've put Saka in the limelight over the last few months too. They're unafraid to do that because we invest the time to train them to be able to handle it.
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially these days. The media play a big part. And these young players are talented, and people are going to want to speak to them, Sophie. And if you don't prepare them, then you could be left with egg on your face, because it's very hard. It is very hard once the media know you're not as eloquent as they would like. They could trip you up. But you tend to find all these young men are so eloquent that, do you know what? A trait I see in them all, they've got a nice way about them. Yeah, they're humble. They've got a nice way about them as well. There's nothing flash or anything like that about them. They're just nice and calm, and they believe in themselves. So I think what a fantastic job Arsenal have done with them. Yeah, I agree with you.
Brilliant. So I have a question here, which is important, that can affect certain players in terms of, their evolution. So do we take Guendouzi back? He's playing more forward for Hertha, Super Kev. When you see the progression of ESR and some of these other players. We don't know what Arsenal want to do with Guendouzi, but it doesn't seem like he has an immediate way back into the team that could disrupt an Emile Smith Rowe.
Don't take him back.
Mm-hmm.
No chance. And this is the point I was making about. There was a lot of people talking about Arteta's man management style. Now, at the end of the day, which kid, because he's still a kid, which kid could turn around and have a go at the manager and expect to have save his job?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know any business where a kid could have a go at the manager and that's going to be accepted. But yet our fan base, for some crazy reason, come out and say, oh, his man management style, because look what he done to Guendouzi. If Guendouzi won't toe the line, get out, because look what I've got coming behind you.
Right.
Guendouzi won't get in the team, Sophie.
No, especially with that attitude as well. There was a really good question here from Amesy that I want to try and find and bring up because he has had some injuries. You know, he went to RB Leipzig, but, you know, unfortunately there were injury issues there. I think he only made 3 or 4 appearances when he went out on loan there. Ralph Rangnick was, you know, hopeful for a little bit more. But when he did go to Huddersfield, you know, he did do a good job, Casey. What do you think about Amesy's question about him being injury prone? We saw that a little bit earlier this season too, which is why maybe he wasn't played as much. Yeah,
look, I know he had the injury. I think he had a shoulder or something. But this is, I don't think injury prone is the one. You got to remember, he's a young boy. You know, he's a young boy. Listen, the game although the game isn't as physical now that it was, it's still fast and it's still physical. Mm-hmm. And these youngsters are going to pick up some injuries from time to time, especially early on until they really get their bodies right. You know, you see Kieran Tierney is solid. He knows what it takes. He's played for donkey's years up at Scotland. But these youngsters have all suffered injuries. Look at them. They're all babies, man. They're babies.
Look at them.
You know,
look at them and I get so excited, Casey.
Yeah, you're right. You know, I just, you know, you just want to hug them, don't you? And look after them. And, you know, Amesy's right. You know, want to protect them? Of course we want to protect them. But when they're that good, unfortunately, we can't protect them. We want them to play because they're making a difference.
Absolutely. Here's one from Macro Russell for you. KC, don't you think Pepe can rotate with Smith Rowe in the number 10 role? We saw the rotation with Saka and Willian early this season. You and I referenced that Sheffield United game a lot. KC, is there a way back for Pepe now? I think he can still bring value to the team in certain competitions, but he's definitely not number 1. Or Arteta maybe might not be wanting to squeeze him in just to make it work anymore with the options that he has. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a really good conundrum because now what Pepe is going to have to think about is look at all these kids that have got in and they're holding their own. They're actually making more of a difference than I am. So when he gets his next chance, it's going to be interesting to see what his attitude is like. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that much. Because the way Smith Rowe's playing, I wouldn't swap him for Pepe. Rotate him. Why? Mm-hmm. Pepe's had more chances than Smith Rowe and hasn't played as well or made a big difference like he has. He scored some great goals and he's talented. I totally get that. And I'm one, I like giving people a chance. But you know what? These kids are changing the landscape at Arsenal. They really are. And if Pepe hasn't got it in him, because Pepe has to fight.
Yeah.
He's got to get out there and fight. And if it's not in you, you're not gonna get game time.
Right. And Super Kev, one of the things we've talked about a lot is that there's this attempt for Amadou and Arteta to change the DNA and the culture of the club because we lost our way quite drastically over the years, even though we reignited that in the cup runs and getting to a Europa League, a European final, we've not really been able to hone that culture and philosophy into the Premier League. And across the season, Casey, I think this is what they're trying to change. The Everything Arsenal podcast, welcome to the show. ESR and the other Haylen boys have the right mentality. They get what it takes to play for Arsenal. Players like Guendouzi take it for granted, build the team around ESR and the rest of the boys, which we brought up on screen just a little bit ago here, Super Kev. I agree and concur completely. In order to move the club forward, this is the direction that we need to stick with right now and trust and believe in. And you were there. You played for Arsenal Football Club, and you were one of those younger players that, George Graham trusted and the club trusted to kind of move things forward. And Arsenal have always had a little bit of that British core too, which I think is important with Saka and Smith Rowe and Niles and Willock and some of the other players.
Yeah, I think, look, again, give the kids a chance. You were championing it and it happened, and look what they've done. Absolutely brilliant they've been. They've been a breath of fresh air. They've brought incredible energy. But you know what as well, Sophie? They've brought incredible quality to the game as well. They've when you see the manager taking them off to protect them, that's big respect. Yeah. That's big respect to everyone at Hayland and all the regime, everybody who's coached them moving forward. I think it's a massive tick in the box for Arsenal as a football club. And I think some of these kids might be the reason why Arsenal get to sign some of the best kids as opposed to Chelsea.
Absolutely.
Now, because they get a chance.
Yeah, totally. And real captain, you're right. Add the other three. Tierney, hopefully Balogun will stay. We'll have to see. It looks less likely as time goes on, but you have Tierney as part of this Fab Four, if you like, that we're looking at here to be the future. Super Kev, before we go, wondered if here on our player profile, Emile Smith Rowe, hope you guys are enjoying the new show. We'll have our next player profile to you as part of the lockdown series in a few days. Any weaknesses that you see? Because there's been a lot of raving, and I understand what Owen Hargreaves and Paul Ince are trying to say. It's like, harness it in. We got very excited about Jack Wilshere. We got excited about Theo and the British core that Wenger had for a while. Any weaknesses you see in Emile Smith Rowe's game? As a young player, I'm sure he's got a lot he can work on.
Look, there's always weaknesses in every player. No player is away from weakness. I think, obviously, goals is really important. Not only the chance he creates, but he's got to score more. Because what that then does, that then puts the defense on notice. He's got to be accounted for, and that creates even bigger spaces. Because when you look at what Kevin De Bruyne does for Man City, when he picks the ball up, everybody's on eggshells because you never know what he's going to do. He can see the passes, he can see players when everyone thinks, how did he see him? And then you slow it down, and he's looked way beforehand. There's that. Obviously, there's understanding of the game a bit more at the top level. Mm-hmm. There's that. There's being more of a help to his central midfielders and just being that easy pass, that player to easy pass where you don't have to run. Sometimes you just stand still, get the ball, and then you could play. It's just understanding, top level football. But the case, I'd like to finish on a positive.
Yes.
What he's got, you can't teach. That football brain, you cannot teach it, Sophie. He picks it up so quick. He understands where people are. He understands how to inject tempo. And you cannot teach that. It's a God-given gift, and I'm so pleased we got him.
I love that. That is a very positive note to finish on. He is definitely a player that we should be excited about. And the other thing I love about him, Casey, to add one extra note, because look at me, I'm 1 minute before the 30 minutes and everyone's already telling me I'm going to run 15 minutes over.
We're not even finished yet. I'm not stupid. We ain't finished yet.
Is the chemistry, because you've played at the highest level. Chemistry is really important. I mean, we've seen great chemistry and players don't even like each other, like Andy Cole and Teddy Sheringham. You and I have talked about that. But then there's you and Ian Wright. There's Andy Cole and Dwight York. We saw Chris Sutton and Alan Shearer back in the day at Blackburn. We're seeing Son and Kane right now. There is a chemistry. There's this, the United kids, they had this chemistry, this love, and you can see the way they interact with each other on social media. There's a genuine care between the Sakas of the world and the Emile Smith Rowes and the Reece Nelsons. And I mean, whether Reece and Joe are part of the future, that will remain to be seen. But Martinelli, even kind of coming in from the Brazilian point of view, they seem to get along really well. And in the modern game, that really matters, doesn't it? Very different to when you were coming through the ranks.
Well, not really different, because remember, look how many kids came through when I was coming through. I was me, David Hillier, Ray Parler, Paul Dickoff, Ian Selly, Stephen Morrow. You know, we were the ones who were looking up at the Tony Adams and Paul Davis and Rocky and Mickey Thomas, Gus Caesar, Martin Hayes, Niall Quinn, Paul Merton. Think about it. You know, if you ported that to now, that was the original class.
The first class.
We were the first class. It wasn't just the class of 92, because that was Premier League era. That's why they get all the thing. But that Arsenal squad who came through, look how many homegrown players were in there coming through, were successful, etc. So it was incredible. But we talk about the culture, Sophie. We talk about the feeling for Arsenal, how Arsenal fans don't feel the players anymore. But we feel these lads, and these lads feel the fans. And we're slowly getting it back. Mikel Arteta knows what it is. Edu knows what it is, Sophie. And that's why it feels so good to see, to feel it, and to see these kids make a prominent contribution. It's brilliant.
I love it. Well put. And Ayushman Rochaudhry here, they play without fear. And KC, I think that's one of the things that we loved about you as well. Whenever you played, when you put the shirt on, it looked like you just played without fear. Like you couldn't wait to just put your boots on and get out and do your job, but at the same time have fun doing your job. And I think that's the biggest difference between new signings coming in, like a Pepe, who's 72 million, the most we've ever spent, that comes with a lot of stress and pressure, versus being there for a while, knowing the club, and when you get your chance, you're fearless about it.
Sophie, look, I was so hungry.
Yeah, you were.
I was so hungry. You got to remember, any fan who's on, yourself, any fan who's in chat or listens to this, I was you in the stand. That was me. Now, to get the opportunity to go and be close to the first team is one thing. To get on the pitch and play, Sophie, hey, listen, every time for me, I'll be honest with you, Sophie, for me, it was all about Arsenal winning. I didn't care. If I scored goals, brilliant. If I didn't score, I didn't care. As long as Arsenal won, I didn't care, because that's that was the fan in me, if that makes sense. I just wanted Arsenal to win, because when Arsenal win, everyone's happy.
Oh yeah, you know, very happy.
Everyone's happy when we get the W. So I was just like any fan watching the game, or in the stand, or watching at home, or listening on the radio. That's what I used to do. I used to do it all. And then obviously I was lucky enough to get scouted by the club, come through the ranks, play, score my first goal in front of the North Bank. It was amazing. And I've lived the dream. I've honestly lived the dream at Arsenal. And now I'm living another dream, because I get to interact with Arsenal fans and talk about our great club. It's special. And to see these youngsters as well, Sophie, the next generation, because these are the next generation.
Yeah, they sure are. Well, listen, there's a lot of people in chat talking about how they watched you play, Casey, from you being quick and strong to being rapid across the turf, to our good friend Newman, who remembers watching you from the North Bank. You had power. Amesy loved watching Super Kev. And this is it. You know, in years to come, people will be talking about, oh, look, and you shove defenders to one side like a rag doll. That's completely true. Just being young alone, you play without fear. It's not only hunger and passion, you play with freedom. That is very true, Matthew Hudson. So, KC, I'm going to leave you with the final word here, 20 seconds. What's your immediate advice to our player profile player today, Emile Smith Rowe? What would you say to him if you had a few seconds in a nutshell? What would you tell him?
I'll tell him to keep doing what you're doing. Keep being a sponge, learning, but keep being demanding on the pitch. Keep demanding more from yourself and your teammates, because with your football brain, you're going to make a hell of a difference moving forward. So the quicker you learn, the better you're going to be.
I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Listen, we hope that you've enjoyed listening to, this is the first episode in the lockdown series. Hey, look, we're all in the same boat. We're here for you, the whole squad. We're going to bring some great engaging content. Hope you enjoyed our very first episode of the player profile. Our next player profile is down to you. You guys get to vote. So you have to send us a Twitter at Highbury Squad and let us know who you would like to be in episode 2, and to hear Casey talk about and give his lowdown on any current Arsenal player. And that episode will be dedicated completely to them. And yes, overtime by 5 minutes. It's not as bad as I usually go over.
Sophie time!
It's Sophie and Casey. Sophie time, but Casey always doing the good thing and indulging me just a little bit. All right, Super Kev. Until tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, it is Kevin Says. You're not going to want to miss that. I've seen the videos already. Casey's got some superb stuff lined up for you. And remember, this is your show. You dictate the content. We play the videos, and then Casey answers all of your questions. And it's fair game. Everything is allowed.
Nothing is off limits. Yeah, nothing off limits.
Nothing is off limits. So, Super Kev, until tomorrow, let's let everyone know what the scoop is.
It's always the Arsenal, isn't it? Come on, you Gunners.
Get in.